When the bombs fell and city infrastructure was reduced to rubble during World War II, survival often depended not on weapons, but on knowledge, practical, life-saving knowledge. One of the most overlooked yet brilliant survival techniques from that era involved a substance most people would have thrown away: fireplace ash. While food and medicine were scarce, clean drinking water became the rarest commodity in bombed-out cities across Europe and Asia. Rivers and wells were contaminated with debris, sewage, and even chemical runoff. But for those who knew the secret, ash became the difference between sickness and survival. This was the World War II ash mix, an improvised natural purifier that turned filthy water into something drinkable long before filters and tablets existed. Let's step back into the chaos of 1940s Europe, where civilians, soldiers and underground medics all relied on resourcefulness to stay alive. When the power grids collapsed, when plumbing failed, and when fresh water lines were destroyed, people turned to the old ways, the methods their grandparents used before industrial sanitation. One of those methods came from centuries of rural wisdom: wood-ash water purification. It wasn't fancy and it wasn't fast, but it worked, and it saved lives in places like London, Warsaw and Berlin when every drop counted. You know, the use of ash to purify water wasn't something that was invented during the war. It was, well, rediscovered out of necessity. For generations, people had actually used ash lye to clean clothes, sanitize tools, and even preserve food. So, during the Second World War, the same principle, it was applied to water purification. Wood ash from clean, untreated firewood contains potassium carbonate and calcium carbonate. These are alkaline minerals that essentially neutralize acidity and trap impurities. When you add just small amounts to contaminated water, these compounds bind to heavy metals, dirt, and even some bacteria, which causes them to settle right down to the bottom. What remained above was, well, clearer, safer water that could then be boiled or filtered through cloth. In bombed cities, where those industrial filtration plants were, just gone, this bit of knowledge spread quietly through word of mouth. Civil defence pamphlets in parts of Europe even included brief mentions of using ash as a last resort for, improving unclean water. It wasn't perfect science, but honestly, it was better than drinking from polluted gutters or canals. When wood burns completely, it leaves behind oxides and carbonates that are mildly caustic. Mixed with water, these minerals form a weak alkaline solution that reacts with impurities. In simple terms, the ash alters the water's pH, making it harder for harmful microbes to survive. The carbonates also help clump fine particles together, a process known as flocculation, so they can settle out. The soldiers and civilians who used it didn't understand the chemistry. They just knew the results. The best ash came from hardwoods like oak, maple or birch, because they produced a fine, clean residue with higher mineral content. Ash from painted, treated or coal-burning fires was never used. It was toxic. The goal was to use clean ash, collected from campfires or stoves that burned only natural wood. This same method was adapted in field hospitals and by partisans hiding in forests. When rainwater mixed with soot or mud, ash could help remove the visible impurities before boiling. In London's bomb shelters, where plumbing was damaged, families used kettle ash mixes to clarify water drawn from old cisterns. For those who study or practice survival skills, understanding how to use natural materials for clean water is crucial. The World War II ash method can still serve as an emergency fallback if you ever find yourself off-grid or after a disaster. The process begins with collecting clean, fine ash from hardwood fires. Avoid anything from treated or painted wood. Right, so let the ash cool completely, then sift it through a fine cloth or mesh to remove any charcoal fragments. Now add 1 tablespoon of this sifted ash to about a litre of cloudy water. Give it a good stir and, well, let it sit for about 30 minutes. During that time, the heavier particles and impurities will begin to settle right down to the bottom. After it's settled, carefully pour the clearer water on top through a clean cloth or coffee filter into another container, just like that. Right, so finally you'll want to boil the water for at least 10 minutes to kill any remaining pathogens. The boiling step is, well, absolutely essential. It really completes the purification. Now, this process won't make toxic or chemical-laden water completely safe, but it's, effective for removing organic impurities and reducing turbidity. In remote or wartime-like conditions, it can honestly mean the difference between dehydration and infection. Even with all our technology these days, modern purification systems still rely on the same core principles used during the Second World War. Neutralizing contaminants, settling out impurities, and sterilizing the result. The ash mix, you see, represents a low-tech version of what modern water treatment plants do, using chemicals like alum and lime. For off-grid enthusiasts and preppers, mastering this simple chemical trick can, well, provide a last resort backup when commercial filters or tablets run out. In today's world, where wildfires, floods and urban blackouts can knock out clean water systems overnight, knowing this lost wartime technique could honestly make a real difference. If you're collecting rainwater in barrels, for example, a pinch of clean ash stirred into the water before filtering and boiling can, improve clarity and reduce acidity. Gardeners who store rainwater for plants can use it to balance pH naturally. It's old science, reborn for modern resilience. What makes this story powerful isn't just the chemistry, it's the ingenuity of ordinary people. In the ashes of war-torn cities, when hope and infrastructure were both shattered, survival often came down to knowledge passed down from grandparents who remembered the pre-industrial world. This method wasn't written in textbooks. It was whispered through basements, practiced in makeshift kitchens, and shared among those who refused to give up. By understanding the ash purification mix, we're not just learning how to make cleaner water. We're preserving the mindset of adaptability that defined an entire generation. It's a reminder that technology may fail, but the principles of survival endure. If this piece of forgotten World War II wisdom resonated with you, don't let it stay in the past. Try it out safely, understand the process, and, well, add it to your personal survival toolkit. Mix a small batch using clean hardwood ash. Test it with cloudy rainwater and see how much clearer it becomes before boiling. Every time you experiment with these old techniques, you're keeping a fragment of history alive and useful. Here on the Backyard Channel, we dive deep into lost skills like this, not just for nostalgia, but because they still work. If you found this guide valuable, make sure to subscribe and share this video with other history and survival enthusiasts. The knowledge that once saved lives in bombed cities might one day save yours.